So given the theaters were closed for most of the year, this ended up being the worst movie year of the past decade. Now usually I don't count direct-to-streaming or direct-to-video or TV movies, but given that there just weren't that many options, I expanded it to include those too. Basically, as long as I can put it in a letterbox list, it counts. And because I had to stick mostly to streaming movies, I had to see a lot of mediocre stuff this year, like All the Bright Places and Latte and the Magic Waterstone. And there were some movies like New Mutants and The Way Back that were so boring I can't even remember them, but let's not talk about those. Let's just get into the real shit. We're counting down!
The top 5 worst movies of 2020. Number 5.
Remember Blumhouse's Truth or Dare?
I had it as my 5th worst movie of 2018 and even gave it a film exaggeration review last Halloween where I said that it was mostly bad and then the ending made it infuriating.
Well, did you know that there was another Blumhouse movie released this year with the same director and writing team and also stars Lucy Hale? And if you can believe it, it's even worse.
Rourke, if you can hear me, I know what I said. I wanted to humiliate Sloane and watch her cry, but this is not what I meant.
I don't know why Blumhouse keeps putting their names in front of their worst movies, because the same year they gave us The Invisible Man and The Hunt, which were both really good, Fantasy Island feels like a shitty January horror movie from the late 2000s. The characters are all stereotypes, and half of them are so obnoxious. Remember Ronnie, the annoying dude bro from Truth or Dare, whose entire character is based on the fact that he was horny and no one liked him? Well, imagine there were 2 of him, and they didn't die in the first act. That is how you end up with Brax and JD, 2 of the most annoying shitbags I've seen in a horror movie in a long time. The acting isn't very good. I mean, they are trying, but a lot of them feel wooden. And it looks cheap, which, yeah, technically it is cheap. It only costs about $7 million to make. But most Blumhouse movies, even the worst ones, usually make the most with the budget they are given. But this has scenes that are supposed to be Vietnam War scenes that feel like they were shot in the woods in the back of Jason Blum's house. There's tons of jump scares, and it does feel hindered by the PG-13 rating, which for all of Truth or Dare's faults, I at least thought they worked with that rating, as did Split, Glass, and the Happy Death Day movies. You can make a PG-13 horror movie and have it feel natural. This doesn't. The editing is awful. A lot of the movie switches between the characters living their fantasies, but we will spend so long on one character that I was forgetting the others existed, and it feels so long.
But of course I can't say this is worse than Truth or Dare without talking about the ending, and oh my god, the ending to this movie is bullshit.
They just keep adding twist after twist, piling them on that they started to piss me off. Some of them kinda contradict each other, and one of them makes it so that the whole thing about living out your fantasies is bad concept is completely pointless. Everything this movie was trying to do with its message was done better in Coraline, a kids movie made over a decade ago. This feels like something I would have written in middle school, where you just put a ton of different ideas that alone or maybe 2 could have made something pretty cool, but together make no sense. And because of that, I do have a bit of a soft spot for it. And there are a few scenes that work, like a pretty great one where Lucy Hale's character Melanie gets revenge on her childhood bully. They were trying, which is why I'm not that angry at it. They wanted to do something ambitious and different, and while it didn't work, I at least appreciate the attempt.
But this does get the honor of being the only movie on this list that got a theatrical release, so good for you.
Baby, I ain't playing by your rules. Everything look better with a view, yeah.
Am I falling in love with the one that could break my heart?
Number 4. This movie has a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes and had the bad luck of being a movie featuring excessive police brutality released right after the murder of George Floyd. I don't hold that against it, and honestly, for the first 20 minutes, I didn't think it was all that bad. It's directed by Olivia Megaton, who also directed the 2 Taken sequels, well known for their incomprehensible action scenes.
And I say that as someone who liked the second movie, or at at least I did when I saw it back in 2012.
But the action scenes in this movie aren't that bad. They're nothing spectacular, nowhere near the level of Extraction, but they're at least coherent. So for 20 minutes, I'm like, this isn't great, but I don't see 0% bad. But then by the time we hit the half-hour mark, I realized I absolutely did not care about anything in this. I didn't care about the plot, I didn't care about the world, and I sure as shit didn't care about the main character. This guy has no emotion on his face through the whole movie. His brother dies, and he shows no sadness. He is boring, so I don't give a shit what happens to him. And by the time I realized that I didn't care, there were still 2 hours left, and I have a supreme hatred for movies that are unnecessarily long. If it were a half hour shorter, I may have given it a pass. I was getting so annoyed with how bored I was that I had to stop it twice. I legit had to make myself dinner and come back later. There's no emotional connection to the characters. It actually tries to have an emotional moment at the end, and I actually laughed. Like, I legit laughed. I was like, oh no, movie, you do not get to try and make me care now. The editing is confusing. Things were happening and I had no idea what was going on. There is one character I liked, Kevin Cash. He's funny, he's charismatic, and I just enjoyed his screen presence. Everyone else I couldn't give a shit about. Besides that, I kinda like the look of the film. It's kinda cool, it's gritty, dirty. There was a seriously ambitious attempt. Just too bad I spent the whole time bored off my ass.
So did it deserve 0%? I mean, I want to say no, because there was stuff I liked and I thought it had ambition, but looking back, I can't imagine anyone liking this.
And I really wanna know where you at, where?
Am I falling in love with the one that could break my heart?
Number 3.
I was rooting for you.
It's in the portrait gallery. It's like a really, really big dwarf.
Yes, right on schedule.
This was supposed to come out in like 2019, but kept getting pushed back, and then once theaters closed, they just dumped it on Disney+. Which to some may seem like a sign that it would suck, but these movies were meant to go to Disney+ from the beginning, and they were good. Artemis Fowl sucks. A lot. In fact, I now understand how people who didn't watch Avatar: The Last Airbender felt when they saw the live-action movie. I haven't read the books, but from everyone I know who has read them, Artemis is the bad guy, or at least antagonistic. This movie has him as the hero, even though he is one of the most unlikable child characters I've seen in years. He's condescending, rude, and just an asshole. Not helped with the fact that the kid who plays him is terrible. Don't get me wrong, I put no blame on him and hope he has a better career ahead of him, because I know it's not his fault, because most of the acting is pretty wooden. This is a horribly directed film. The special effects are pretty nice most of the time, and some of the production designs and action scenes are neat, but the editing is awful. It felt like the whole movie was on fast forward. Barely anything was given a chance to breathe. Because of that, I don't care about any of these characters. And everything is exposition. Almost everything is explained to us in Josh Gad voiceover, even stuff that's happening on screen in front of us.
In fact, I want people who hated Rise of Skywalker saying it was all exposition to apologize. I want them to watch this movie and then apologize to Rise of Skywalker.
It's not well written either. There's a villain, kinda. He is a freaking caricature of a villain, and we barely get to know him since most of the movie is spent fighting Judi Dench and her army.
Oh, by the way, in terms of Judi Dench movies, this is way worse than Cats.
This isn't even ambitious. It felt like one of those movies that would have come out 10 to 15 years ago that was trying to be the next Harry Potter. It's dull. It's only an hour and a half, and it felt over 2 hours. And again, I wanted to be nice to it. Even when everyone else was saying this would suck, I held out hope. Although I will say, I do want to see if the book is good. I'm sure they are. The concept's fine, but either through executive meddling or just not caring enough, it failed.
Just let me adore you, that's the only thing I'll ever do. Am I falling in love with the one that could break my heart?
Number 2. This movie sucks, and I pray we don't get a 2020 whichever one of these people gets the nominations America coming later this year.
Well, it's not exactly called that.
Next stop, women. On the surface, this is about protecting women and the Me Too movement. Christine Blasey Ford had a different agenda.
I talked about Hillary's America earlier this year, and I absolutely hated it. Easily the worst movie of 2016. Trump card didn't anger me as much for a few reasons. One, I watched this before the election. Two, it's just pathetic at this point. Despite spending a third of Hillary's America complaining about Obama, Dinesh still takes time out of this movie to complain about Obama. It's just sad. Despite what you may think, this is not a movie about Joe Biden. That would require Joe Biden to have at least one interesting thing about him. No, this is mostly about socialism. Every single argument is a straw man meant to scare the audience into thinking the Democratic Party, the party that screwed over Bernie specifically so they could put in someone who doesn't even support Medicare for all, will send us into a communist state.
But you know what, we all expected that. Let's just talk about all the little things in this movie that either annoyed me or made me laugh.
First off, it's badly made, even more than Hillary's America. While that film was more infuriating, it at least had focus. When you got on a subject, they stuck to it until they were finished. This movie will keep flip-flopping to the point where I didn't know what he was trying to say. And he'll just throw in random mentions of the coronavirus, but he doesn't talk about it, he just brings it up a lot as a way to maybe be relevant and also a little racist. They replaced most of those crappy reenactments with god-awful animations that make it look like the most terrifying PragerU video ever made. He's not a good interviewer either. Every time he's talking to someone, he'll say, "What you're saying is," which is textbook bad journalism, and the interviewees he gets are lame. He got fascist propagandist Andy No to talk about how Antifa is as bad as ISIS and somehow worse than white supremacists, the Muslim guy that Islamophobes bring out to bash Muslims, a gay guy who says he doesn't let being gay be his identity while at the same time making conservative his identity, and probably most pathetic, he gets his freaking daughter to talk about why abortion is bad. Like, come on Dinesh, get like Ali Best Stuckey or someone, try harder. And it gets into other stuff that's just awful, more anti-Muslim bigotry. I mean, they never bring up Saudi Arabia, you know, the country that literally killed an American journalist because they got a fearmonger about Ilhan Omar, and complain about Muslim refugees coming into America because they're still stuck in 2016. They suggest we should bring back the school to prison pipeline because that means the Parkland shooting would never have happened, despite that pipeline leading to a lot of young people, mostly black, going to jail, and apparently Obama got his dick sucked by a man a couple of times and the media never treated it like they did Stormy Daniels, so fake news. And they claim Democrats are trying to rule by fear over stuff like the coronavirus and climate change, yet spend over an hour and a half fear-mongering saying Democrats will make it so Christians can't worship in their America. But again, the music was nice.
This movie couldn't even accomplish its one goal of helping Trump win. So Dinesh, to sum up my feelings, I think I'll quote our next president, Joseph Biden. Would you shut up, man?
Yeah, these are my only intentions. That's all I plan to do. Am I falling in love with the one that could break my heart?
Number 1.
So, I'm trying to avoid saying, fuck this movie. I feel I overuse it and it's starting to lose all meaning. But with that said, fuck the Wrong Missy!
It's so great to see you.
Alright, I don't have the vile, seething hatred for most Happy Madison movies that a lot of people do. Most of the ones I've seen range from mediocre to bad, but whatever for me. The only two that actually managed to piss me off were The Ridiculous Six and Bucky Larson Born to Be a Star. And this movie is worse than both of them. And the fact that it has a higher rating than Desperados on Rotten Tomatoes is a crime against humanity, and I will not stand for it. So, why do I hate it? Well, there are the smaller reasons. It's not funny. I got a couple small chuckles, one coming from Rob Schneider, if you can believe it. It feels a lot longer than it is. It's only an hour and a half, but felt 3 hours. There's no logic. Someone could fall off a fucking cliff and hit the ground, only spraining an ankle. But you know, I can forgive those. The thing about this movie that shoots it to number 1 is the Wrong Missy herself, played by Lauren Lapkus, who is also in Holmes and Watson.
Fire your agent!
I fucking hate this character. Why? Well, she's annoying for one thing, and yeah, she's supposed to be annoying, but it's too much. I don't laugh at her, I don't pity her, I want her to go away. I want nothing more than for David Spade to end up with Molly Sims because those two actually had good chemistry. Every joke with her is either awkward, gross, or contributes to the big problem with the movie.
And that problem is that it gives us a chance to play everyone's favorite game, reverse the sexes, and see if this gets greenlit, much less considered a comedy.
This is Double Standards, the film. Let's see, the first thing she does is lie about where she is and nearly gets David Spade beaten up by a much larger man. She brings a large knife on their first date. She threatens suicide if Spade tries to break up with her. She nearly gets him eaten by sharks, and she rapes him twice. This is textbook abusive relationship.
And you know what? Fuck it. I'm spoiling the ending. You don't want to know what happens? Just click off the video, see you tomorrow. But I have to explain what is wrong with this ending.
So like you expect in a movie like this, David Spade eventually starts to like the wrong Missy. The first time he sees her in anything besides a negative light is when she hypnotizes someone and takes away his free will. But what really seals the deal is that she's really good at sex. Who gives a shit? There are a lot of women who are good at sex and they won't get you killed or rape you. The third act breakup, which should not have happened because this woman is awful and it should be a triumphant moment, but she gets angry and makes a slashing motion at her throat because she's completely unstable and needs to be in a mental ward. But then afterward, this idiot, for no reason that makes logical sense, completely ruins his life for this awful woman. He gets himself fired, breaks up with Molly Sims, and eventually becomes the male version of her. This woman broke this man. This movie is horrifying. Fuck this movie, and I would like to take this time to apologize to Norbit for being so hard on it. At least Rasputia was the fucking villain.
So that's it. See you all tomorrow for the best of the year. Bye.
You got to